Hi everybody, and in this video I want to showcase my city that I've been building in City Skylines. This city is different because instead of my usual car-centric, sprawling American-style design, I decided to go with a more compact European look this time around. I did this for two reasons. Firstly, I got into urban planning the last couple of years and I wanted to apply what I've learned there in this city. And second, I live in Zurich, Switzerland, and it does a lot of cool stuff that I also incorporated here. My city, named Induction Pantopia, has its guiding principles based on the following chart that applies to every sim. We have the distance one needs to travel, and depending on that, a different mode of primary transportation should be used. For example, for short distances, one should walk, and then going farther, one would take the bike, the tram, and then finally the train. Note the bottom right. We should avoid cars as much as possible. Next up, here's a CSL map view of my city. You can pause the video to check it out yourself, or you can view the map in the link in the description, but I wanted to highlight two things. First, trains, shown by the black lines, form the backbone of my network. They go everywhere you possibly want to go. Second, note that there's no highways in the city, and only the mountain bypass that was there at the start remains. So without further ado, let's dive right into it. Alright, so first let's talk about my trains. As I said before, you can take them anywhere you want to go, and they're very heavily utilized. You can see the platforms over here, just how many people are on it, but if we go into the statistics over here, we can see that around 5,000 people ride them per week in my town of 70,000. So I consider this a great success. One interesting point to note about my train line is along the coast here, I have a pretty long settlement, and between here and here, there's a bunch of stations in between. So depending on how far you want to go, there's different train lines to meet your needs. So for example, there's a local train which stops at every train station in between. There's a semi-express train which stops only at certain stations, an express train which stops at only the end station. So kind of my train network is distributed like that such that the passenger load on it can be eased. Next up, I have my tram network. I chose trams instead of a metro system because I feel like trams are a more human scale of transport that fits into the fabric of the city. That is, instead of having to go into an underground tube where everything's hidden from above, the tram is at street level and I feel like that the city forms around its tracks. As usual, these stop more often than trains, and you can theoretically transfer between the two at certain points in my city. Also, where my trams don't go, I have buses instead, but the idea would be to replace all the buses with trams in the city when it's finally complete. Alright, so next up I want to talk about my bike infrastructure. I guess this is more Dutch than Swiss, but nevertheless I have a whole network of bike paths going throughout my city that complement the tram and the train network really well, and it's very well utilized. I mean, look at all these people enjoying a nice beautiful ride along the sea. Never mind the poo over there. Alright, so finally I'm going to talk about my pedestrian infrastructure in the city. I'm not going to go spend too much time on this, but what I wanted to say was I prefer having these big wide pedestrian malls because it makes the Sims feel like they own the street themselves, rather than just being, plopped on a sidewalk over here with cars moving around. So I prefer to have these kind of wide sidewalk mall type things around as much as possible. Now some of you might be thinking, alright, it's cool that you encourage all these other modes of transportation, but if the car is still the fastest way to get from point A to point B, wouldn't the Sims just use that instead? And to that end, I'd say yes, you're completely right. It's not enough just to encourage the other modes of transportation, it's also necessary to actively hinder the car. I did this in 3 different ways. 2 of them are policies, which are free public transport and encourage biking, but the third one is a little bit more hidden. They're called modal filters, and I learned this from the city of Zurich. These are basically roads that only allow a certain type of traffic through, and with these, I separate the city for the car, but not for other modes of transport. I'll show you what I mean. So for example, this left side of the city and the right side over here look connected, but in reality, they're connected for everybody but the private car. I'll show you what I mean. Over here we have a bike lane, a pedestrian path, tram tracks, more pedestrian paths, train tracks, another tram track, and this is only for city vehicles. Note that there's no cars allowed through here. So for example, if you want to get from the hospital to the Strawberry residence, you can just go through here. You have to take the highway and the long way around up here. So that was the overview of my city, and I hope you all liked it. If you want to try out the map yourself, it's called Costa Azzurra. I'll leave the link in the description below. I really like this map because I feel like it models Swiss cities quite well. Not because of this giant sea, but because of the valleys in between these mountain ranges, where the mountains act as green lungs of the city covered with forests, and the towns can be placed in between the mountain ranges in the valleys. So yeah, I stream this map on Twitch sometimes, so if you want to catch me building it there, I'll also leave that link in the description. And to leave you off this video, I will take you through a tram ride of my city. Until next time, bye bye.